want to propose to you that true rest is hard work because it requires us to be present with God and with ourselves. Rebecca Lyons was right. Rest is an essential daily rhythm for all of us to include in our lives. But until recently, I completely misunderstood what rest was, and I think a lot of us do. I thought rest was sleep and all that free time that I had during break, like summer break or winter break. I thought that was what rest was creating that kind of space. But this last summer, God was showing me a lot of the problems that I have when it comes to rest and the way that it causes me to leave that free time feeling less rested and more restless than when I went into it. I call this kind of rest fast food rest because it's easy and it's cheap and it tastes good, but in the end, it doesn't actually fulfill the need that you had. This fast food rest is not necessarily a sin, but it can be. It serves as a cheap replacement for the real thing and leaves us in a worse place than when we started. We all have our own versions of what this fast food rest is, that we use to distract ourselves and to escape. For me, I have a whole spectrum of things that range from neutral to actually sin. Whether it's something like Netflix or Disney Plus, or scrolling mindlessly on Facebook or Instagram, or watching Trevor Noah on YouTube, all the way to things like using pornography to escape. So then, rather than wasting my time resting on all of those things, I spend my time on all sorts of good things. I fill it with things like volunteering, going on a missions trip, taking another leadership position, accepting that extra job, leading a Bible study, finishing that paper early. Just kidding, that never happens. I fill my time with all of these good things, and then I don't have the space to rest, and I don't have the chance to waste that rest. Unfortunately, that doesn't work either, because that just leads to burning myself out. I came into this last summer burnt out from the year, and the free time that I had was not restoring me. Until through a week of fasting and praying, God made me aware of all of these ways that I'm using fast food rest and the way it's not fulfilling me. I realized this whole spectrum from busy to wasting time is all a surface problem, showing us and showing me that I'm trying to find a way to escape and run away from and be distracted from being present with God and showing him me in all of my ugliness. This problem didn't start with Netflix or the rise of the internet. It's been around since the 2nd century. A group of monks called the Desert Fathers were talking about this, and one of them, Evagrius of Ponticus, spoke extensively on the subject. He called it acedia, or acedia. He also said it's the noonday demon, because these monks, despite the fact that they had left everything in life, were still struggling with how to be present with God. They were still distracted. They still felt this temptation, this pull away from being with God. And it showed up in a myriad of ways for them. One scholar said those stricken with acedia are either lazy or they push themselves too hard. The afflicted condemn their peers, or they evince an overwhelming desire to care for them in a time of need. The afflicted hate manual labor, or they pursue it too single-mindedly, or too impatiently. The afflicted desire to flee the cloistered life, or they push themselves to achieve inhuman ascetic greatness. The monks realized that whether you're being drawn into this wasteful rest of scrolling on Facebook, or the productive holy distractions of life that we are so easily able to engage in at Biola, They are equally distracting and pulling us away from resting in the presence of God because they're calling you away from that hard work and toward something easier. What hope then is there for us if humanity has been struggling with this since the 2nd century and probably before that? We need to change our understanding of what rest is. Instead of bouncing back and forth between busy and wasteful rest, let's choose to finally and consistently accept the invitation and draw near in all of our ugliness to rest in the presence of God. Isn't that the gospel? Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And Jesus sets this example for us in Matthew 14:23. It says, after he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was still there alone. So the answer is simple. Find all these things that are faking rest and throw them out of your life. Get rid of them. Then use that extra space to be present with God. Jesus did this through the practice of solitude, and that can be especially helpful when we're facing all of these distractions. Unfortunately, even when we do that, Acadia will still find a way to rear its ugly head. But now, instead of a default loss, you can begin to deal with all of the problems beneath the surface. Evagrius leaves us with a few practices that help us to engage those problems beneath the surface. And I'm still learning what it looks like to actually live these out, but it makes a difference. His first piece of advice is to weep. When we are tempted toward Acadia, it's this temptation to numbness, because it's so much easier to be numb to all of the pain that exists in the world around us than to actually feel and to love people and to be hurt, to see the brokenness that exists in the world and to lament it. The second piece of advice that he gives us is to work. And I know what you're thinking. That's exactly what I just said not to do, to fill our lives with all sorts of busy things. But this kind of work is different. The work that Evagrius is calling us to is one that comes from a place of rest, from being filled with God, from being accepted and loved by him. It's an outflowing of this love. Rather than trying to accomplish all of those tasks that you need to do, this work is about enjoying the presence of God and loving people because of how much you're enjoying that. So write that email that you don't want to write, and thank God that you get the chance to do it. Finish that paper that really you just don't want to finish for finals week. And instead of doing it because you have to, because it's a task on your list to accomplish and then moving on to the next thing, be with God in that. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find rest in that. So, let's bring it all the way back to how we spend our breaks. As I'm going into this winter break, I need to remember that rest is not meant to be an escape. So how are we going to use this time that we have to rest? Are we going to fill it? Are we going to waste it? Or are we going to instead make the hard choice of carving out intentional time to rest with God in all of ourselves by grieving and working in worship and love?
Discover who you're called to be at Biola University, a leading Christ-centered university in Los Angeles, with programs on campus and online. Subscribe for more of our videos and learn more at biola.edu.